Tanks at night, truth by noon. My name is Micah, and I keep the ocean polite when it's pretending to live indoors. I'm the life support engineer at the city aquarium. On paper, that means pumps, ozone contactors, protein skimmers, sand filters, and a small forest of valves that only respect you if you respect them first. In practice, it's listening. To the hiss of air through venturis, to the throat-clearing rattle of a pipe when a bubble is in the wrong place, to water itself, which has opinions about flow it doesn't mind sharing. I carry a multimeter with salt dried in the seams, a flashlight that flatters no one, and a laminated card I made for new hires that says in big letters, "Do not trust quiet water." I live with Jonah. He is a letterpress printer, the old kind, who inks wood type until it remembers to speak, who sets lines of poetry that never wanted to stand up straight and persuades them to. He comes home wearing a constellation of pigment and a smell of warmed paper, which is almost bread and almost memory. Our apartment looks over the ferry slip where gulls practice theft as a sport. On the fridge, we keep a magnetized notepad titled, "Say in Daylight," because we promised not to invent truths after midnight. Some mornings, the magnet is the only thing in the kitchen that takes promises seriously. The Tuesday the pumps were fine and I was not. I was elbow-deep in the Pacific Reef tank's return manifold. The tangs watched like management. A check valve had been flirting with failure all morning. The pressure gauges kept passing notes. I'd cracked the union, reseated the gasket, brought the system back up, and was reaching for my phone to log the fix when a notification slid across the lock screen. The joint email account Jonah and I use for deliveries. Thank you for your stay, Harbor Suites. Time 12/11/302. Points 200 added. I didn't call. Our rule for anything that isn't yet a disaster is 2 loops around the block before nomming it. My block is concrete and wet boots, the catwalk that runs above the main galleries and the narrow corridor behind the touch tank where children's laughter filters up like polite rainfall. I walked it twice. The skimmer overflowed for drama and then remembered it was a professional. The only sentence water knows arrived and left. You already know. Jonah came home smelling like hand-dinked proof sheets and the lemon cleaner he uses even when nothing needs lemon. He set a stack of postcard prints on the counter, kissed the air, then my cheek, then the scar on my palm where a PVC elbow won a year ago. The third kiss is always the calibrated one with him, and saw the notepad turn to blank. I held out my phone as if it were a glass of water he might not want. He didn't audition confusion. "Yes," he said, resting his palm on the back of a chair like the wood could steady his nouns. The shop's press was tied up. The client moved the viewing earlier. The studio manager suggested a daytime room at Harbor Suites. He lifted his eyes. I went, with Mateo. Mateo photographs typed like it's weather, documenting where the light went as much as which letters survived it. Jonah admires him openly and often. "We worked," he said. "It felt good to be possible under a ceiling I didn't grease." There are currents you respect because they're not yours. "We need a clear table," I said. "Tonight, no phones, no ink knives disguised as metaphors." I have a habit. I turn fear into furniture. I dragged the task lamp from my desk to our little maple table, laid a square of plexiglass over it, slid a short string of battery lights underneath that refused to take sides, and taped a clean sheet of paper on top. In black marker I wrote, "Clear table, one truth, one want, no asterisks." Jonah set both palms down. "My truth," he said, voice paper-thin but unwrinkled, "is I liked being looked at like I was still becoming." "My truth," I said, choosing verbs the way I choose valve settings, "is I'm not afraid you slept with him. I'm afraid you'll write the final label somewhere I can't read it. My want, To want you now, not the limited edition version we both know how to market later. My truth, he said, is I want to be seen when I'm still ink and guesswork, not just when the impression is clean. My want, that you want me halfway, fingerprints and all. We added a rule to the fridge, 1 hour without screens every night and a post-it on the table before we brushed our teeth. The first week looked like a row of small instructions: kiss me without captions, say no without an artist statement, hotel emails stop at the door, and then, like a polite reef leak, the hotel wrote again, double points all month. Marketing is a metronome that refuses to hear rhythm. I hid in work. I reprimed the ozone injector that likes to pretend it's shy. I backwashed a sand filter like a priest granting absolution. I swapped out a labyrinth seal on a pump that had decided to be baritone. Between tasks, I wrote on a scrap, remember water, not the kind we shepherd behind acrylic, the kind you drink when grief makes your mouth loud. That night on the table, Jonah wrote, I want to be able to tell you when I like something that isn't you. I wrote, I want to offer more than reprimands, smaller, more than apologies. Days pretended to be cooperative. A child pressed her whole face to the glass by the jellies and whispered "oh" like a vow. A man asked me if sharks sleep. I told him they practice. A volunteer told me I was patient the way coral is patient, which is a nice way to accuse someone of having no alternative. After shift, I came home to find Jonah tapping gray paper to a wall like he was auditioning better weather. Sunday, he said, let's take the early ferry to the outer beach. Arbitrary day. Late return. I said yes the way you say yes to a planned outage, grateful for a darkness you control. We went, 2 hours of noise that belonged to no one. On the beach I thought low visibility procedures, laughed at myself and let my instruments be wrong. We ate a sandwich that believed in salt too much, then another that had learned modesty. Back home, he wrote, I want to be there when you congratulate yourself. I wrote, I want to congratulate you without checking the flow meter first. It felt like a joke and a maintenance note. The magazine that hires him offered a 3-day micro-residency in a concrete studio that pretended to be warm. Hotel included. I want to go for the work, not the soap, he said. I also want to prove I know how to come back. Protocol. Nightly voice memo. Morning, I'm here. No poetry. He left with a reasonable backpack, a shirt I forgive the world for, and a single-serve citrus soap in a font nicer than it meant. I lived like a system after a storm, orderly, alert, one bad idea from a spike. The second night I stood in the public gallery after closing, just me and the moon jellies trading glow like secrets. I listened to the building breathe and to my own heart insist on being petty and then on being generous. I walked the catwalk over the Shark Tank and apologized for earlier, just in case nothing else would. Voice memo 1. The room doesn't smell like anything, it's almost sad. Voice memo 2. I'm here, followed by a blurry picture of a white wall that breathed better than we had. Voice memo 3 didn't come for hours. I rearranged our apartment like I was hunting a frequency. Jealousy has the mechanics of a stuck check valve. Then the text, I'm making my no. I told them I have someone. I said I'm not interested in being profitable for anything else. He came back. He put the melon-scented soap on the console. Drawer for things we laugh about without getting hurt, I asked. Drawer, he said. On the table he wrote, let's learn something useless together. We tried whistling in 2 parts. Catastrophe first, then a narrow miracle. 30 seconds of overlap without envy. 2 lines agreeing to carry the same current for a complicated inch. I don't want to be heroic. I want to be exact. Some evenings I open the archived hotel email the way you tongue a repaired tooth. Some mornings Jonah comes home with a light I don't recognize. I can see the day tuned his frequencies. We sit. We talk low. We let our hands do nothing. Sometimes the table looks like a bric-a-brac held together by tape. sometimes a music stand waiting for breath. Yesterday, a donor with a blazer the color of disappointment suggested we tint the reef, a touch more turquoise for Instagram. He said turquoise like it was obedience. I told him we tint nothing. We fix water and it decides. He smiled like a man hearing no in a language he didn't study. On the way out, a docent pressed a pocket-sized shell into my hand and said, "You look like someone who forgets the beach on purpose." I put the shell on a pipe bridge where only I would notice it. On my way home, I texted Jonah, "I don't want all your notes so I can own them. I want to know them so I can recognize them." He replied, "Then look. The right way to tell a man whose hands are a language that you're listening." I ducked into a hardware store and bought a strip of small blank tags. This morning the hotel tried again, last chance to double your points. I clicked change address and typed hours. I taped 3 tags along the bottom edge of the table and wrote on them in block letters, ME, US, today. Jonah put his hand flat on the paper. "One truth, one want, no asterisks," he said. My truth, I still want to be looked at like I'm a draft. My want, that you look at me like I'm always becoming. My truth, I said, is that I'm afraid of silence but less than yesterday. My want, to kiss you now, even if our hands smell like shellac and electricity. He laughed one note honest and said, "Electricity is your perfume, not mine." I said, "Then share," and did the kissing part. At noon, a pipe clamp failed on the quarantine system we use for new arrivals, a steady, self-righteous stream at chest height. I thumbed the radio, called for help I didn't need so someone would laugh at the right time, and stood in the spray while Malik fetched me a replacement and a towel. "You're soaked," he said. "Water is a hobby," I said, and he rolled his eyes toward the sharks as if to apologize to them. I fixed the clamp and checked the salinity and stood there until the line stopped pretending it had something else to say. When I finally shut the panel and looked through the acrylic, a stingray lifted the edge of itself like a shrug. I took it as permission, because permission needs practice. When I got home, the notepad on the fridge had 2 new lines in Jonah's handwriting. "Say the hard thing before the hard thing says you. Keep the shoreline where you can see it." The little lights under the plexi flickered once, as if approving. Outside, a ferry eased itself into the slip without making the gulls revise their plans. Somewhere in the substation down the block, a transformer hummed its old yes-no and meant both. The tide shouldered the dock like a kind set of hands. And the switches of the city, if you'll believe me, decided, for one night only, to line themselves without complaint.